Yeah, if we could start for the record, your first name is Frank or Franco?
I go by Frank.
Frank, and what's your last name, Frank?
Pagnotta.
How do you spell Pagnotta?
P-A-G-N-O-T-T-A.
Okay. And sitting to the right of you is Ralph. Ralph, what is your last name?
Ralph Teed. T-E-E-D.
Okay. How did you two end up meeting each other? I'll let Frank answer that.
It was going to injured workers meetings and just getting to know each other. And in 93, 94, we got together and got to talk and shared our information about our files, and we became friends from that association. And then eventually we decided that after listening to numerous people complain about their claims, that we were going to try to do something about it. So we were thinking about forming a group, and we started off with about 3 people, and then it grew and it grew and it grew, and so we assigned a name to that group, which was the Provincial Injured Workers Coalition. And so we were going to protest a week before I received the phone call.
Tell us about this phone call. Apparently you did something that got the attention of the media?
Yes.
And that phone call set you off, but that was never publicly stated in the media. What was this phone call about?
The phone call was about a woman who, this is hard to talk about, but it was about a woman who was screaming. She phoned and got my number from Ched, because we had done a little talk about injured workers on the radio. And this woman phoned me. It was about 5 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday night, and I tell you, she was so hysterical. She phoned me back on Monday and started telling me all about her claim and everything, and then at the same time, as she was telling me how WCB had denied her, she was screaming that her kids were being taken away by social workers because she couldn't afford to raise them.
And could you hear the children in the background?
And the children were screaming, and it really affected me. And I knew she needed help, but I didn't know how to get help to her.
What did that end up making you do?
Well, that night I didn't sleep very good, and I was trying to call Ralph, and because we had planned to do a protest, but I wanted to do it now. After hearing this woman, I felt somebody had to do something, and we had to do a protest.
Hearing all those screams of a woman and her children screaming for mercy and help, that must have traumatized you.
It left quite an impression.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So you ended up next day.
Emotionally, I was angry.
Definitely. And the next day you went down to WCB Center.
So I couldn't get a hold of Ralph, so I decided I have to do something that's going to draw the attention of people, because this shouldn't be happening to this woman. So I left messages with Ralph's answering machine, and I told him, I've decided that we're going to start this protest right now, right here, right now. So I went down to WCB, and I figured, how could I protest without being physically removed or told to leave by the security people at WCB? So I drove around a couple of times, and I saw that they had parking posts with little loops. And what I decided to do is I had a set of handcuffs, which, you know, if you really pulled hard enough, they'd break. They're just play handcuffs kind of thing. But they look like the real thing. And what I decided to do is I was going to handcuff myself to one of those posts so that if security came and threatened me, I ain't going nowhere. I can't physically, I don't have the key with me, so I can't move.
So did you do this for that woman and her children?
Yes, that was part of the reason I did it.
But
the reason for the woman and children's phone call got me upset to the point where I didn't want to wait another week to do a protest. I wanted to go out there and do it now. But to make that statement, yes, I handcuffed myself, but it wasn't enough, so I decided to go on a hunger strike. But in the meantime, while I'm doing and saying all this, Ralph's coming into the city, and he comes and joins me, and we decide to put up a tent and protest. And, you know, the support we got was immense. A lot of people took an interest, but the one thing that they didn't do was focus on that child, or on that phone call of that woman who was losing her children. Never mentioned. But it was the catalyst that got us started.
And when you were there, how did the security treat you? Did they ever in any way, were they friendly, or did they ever threaten you?
Well, WCB security had informed me that, in fact, I could not be there. I was trespassing, and I had to leave within 5 days. And I had acquired information and told me I was on public land. So whenever people came to visit, they'd drive by and come and show support. They would bring signage. And I'm talking, you know, you hammer in the ground and it's a full sign, and they're talking about how angry they were. I was there just as a way for them to display it. And the security people came and took all the signage down and warned me that they were going to turn on the sprinkler, and I had to move. And a lot of times they got physical. In other words, they wanted a confrontation, which then would give them the absolute reason to physically remove me. I wouldn't comply. They asked me to go in the back alley with them, and I said no.
Why would they want you in the back alley?
Well, one guy, I don't recall his name, was fed up having to sit there and watch a video of surveillance of me in front of WCB. And he was upset because people were coming and putting more signs up, and he had to come out and take them off. So he was taking out his aggressions on me.
So he was looking for basically to fight.
Confrontation.
He wanted to fight.
He wanted to fight.
So that's against the law. That's
well, at that
that's
time,
criminal.
Ralph had already joined me, and he's the one who talked me out of not going. I was prepared to do it, but
Well, you were standing up for a woman and her children. That
I was trying to stand up for this woman and for injured workers all around, knowing that what's happening to this woman can happen to us any day.
I want to make sure that we get this really straight. Here's one man named Frank standing up for a woman and her children whose family is being devastated, being destroyed, being demolished, being torn away from each other. One man is standing up, and while the one man is standing up, the people that are calling themselves police officers, of all things, are the ones taking these children away. The social workers who are supposed to be protecting people are taking these children away, and yet you're fighting against these people who are supposed to be there to protect these interests of children, and yet one man named Frank did it, and the security members wanted to fight you for this.
Yes.
What a wonderful society we got.
Yes, and the truth of the matter is, I didn't feel like I was just one person, because I was representing the voice of many people. Out of countless meetings I went to with Ralph, we heard it all. And when this lady phoned me and left this conversation with me, and I was listening to her children being rude, I decided something had to be done now, and the attention to these matters have to come right away.
So basically what you did is
So what I did was just step up the protest we were going to do, but I did it in a way that would draw some attention, because this woman was losing her children, her husband's in the hospital, and she's screaming she doesn't know what to do. And I didn't know how to help her. And I had the same sympathy for her, because I was going through a similar thing. I mean, I lost my home, and I was having a hard time with my marriage, and eventually, you know, a person snaps.
Now, just to summarize everything that happened that day of the hunger strike, etc., anything following, you mentioned that the mayor at the time had come to visit you.
Yeah, one Sunday morning when we were just getting up to start the day, it was about 4:30 in the morning. You have to understand, when we're doing a hunger strike, people were coming by honking, and of course we would get limited sleep. But however, Sunday morning, Mayor at the time, Bill Smith, came by and stopped in front of our tent, and I happened to be standing outside the tent, just getting up, and he waved me over. He rolled his window down and asked me to come over. So I approached the vehicle, and he said, "How would you like to go for a coffee this morning?" I said, "Well, okay, I'll have a coffee with you." "Wait, I said, "But I got my friend Ralph in the tent there." He said, "Well, ask him if he wants to go." I asked Ralph. Ralph was still too tired, and he said, no, go ahead. I went for a ride with Mayor Bill Smith. He basically said to me that what I was doing was not wrong, and that I was on public land, and he had no problem with it. However, he did warn me to make sure that the sidewalk in front of where we were protesting, that the sidewalk remained free so that people can still move about. I agreed to that, and I said, "Listen, there'll be no violence. There'll be no breaking the laws. We're here to peacefully demonstrate and protest."
And so we protested in '99.
No,
It
no,
has
you-
to do with the devastation of families. Having experienced being put out in the streets there a number of times with my own children, and experiencing the devastation that causes with their emotions and the way that we live, even my own emotions and that anger is around those children, and it destroys even their future, being around people and I was their caregiver. This really bothers me, and this is part of the reason why I do what I did.
So many people out there that are probably experiencing what you're experiencing. They're experiencing a devastation of family security. They're and their children are paying a price for this.
Well, it's hard enough to bring up children in this day and age, but when you're under this amount of stress and bombardment, I would put it, from those people that are supposed to be there to help and protect you, I got to tell you, I am very naive, or have been over the years, my younger years. Now, that could be from lack of education and truly believing that, like people's hearts are there for one another. And then to find out that those people that we elect or wish to be in charge are actually teaching people to be prudent against their own citizens.
So you, basically back then you had tried to take steps to make sure violent activities or even peaceful aggression situations like what happened with Mr. Patrick Clayton, where he went in but peacefully held hostages at bay. That was being discussed way back in 2003, prior to the police in 2007's latest drill being repealed.
It was actually brought up in our protest in '99, and then we actually stated it to the courts that there was going to be a problem.
Okay, and as far as everything that you've done, all this positive effect, you've done all these things for all these innocent people, these victims, and instead of being rewarded for it, people have been harmed.
Once the system has gotten worse. And so, yeah, we stand up and we say the system is corrupt. But, every individual who gets injured, ends up with a long-term injury claim, can get denied, and that was your income, and if you can't go out to work again, it affects your family. And once it starts to get into the roots of your family, it's a hellish life to live. And people do desperate things
In desperate times.
at desperate times. And WCB fully knows that what they're doing is going to lead to these type of situations with injured workers, and they continue to do it. However, it still affects 30,000 claims a year. And we're not talking about short-term injury claims.
When you say 30,000 claims, you're talking about 30,000 people. Human beings
30,000 people.
are being affected.
Of
We were
course,
just called clients to WCB.
yeah, of course, they call it as a number, and they give you a number, and then you get what they call a claim.
But those 30,000 people may have children, so really
That's right.
the actual pain that's being inflicted is
Could be
beyond
60, 70, 80,000. Who
and
knows?
it is affecting children, the innocent,
course.
that can't fight back right now. So really, they're putting a lot of children at stake, their liberties and their education and their securities at stake over principles of basically money.
And this is with the blessing
That's
of our
what
government.
we found, yeah.
Now, every level of government knows that this is taking place, and they've done nothing to change it.
Long story short, you believe that the potential for another event like Patrick Clayton's could occur again in the future the way things are going?
Of course, the system
course.
has not changed. It's got worse.
Would it be fair to say we got lucky with Patrick Clayton, that maybe it wasn't somebody with a Timothy McVeigh mentality and wanted to blow up the Oklahoma City building?
Emotionally, people are different.
That's
you know,
right.
some of them would resort to doing something like
So
that.
that's what I want to ask. Are we playing Russian roulette with the community that's sooner
That's
or later?
exactly what's happening.
Well, we all have to look into our hearts, and we have to see if we have the compassion and possibly the wisdom to use that compassion to help those that are in need. I believe there's a lot of people out there that are in need. If we don't have those that are in power listening
And helping.
to the pain and the suffering of the people that they're supposedly serving, then I think everybody has to really sit back and have a look. Who are these people that we're asking to actually, we're giving our power to them.
Okay, if we could get your name for the record, it's Anthony. What's your last name, Anthony?
Hughes, H-U-G-H-E-S.
Yeah, how long have you been you've been investigating the WCB, and how long have you been doing that for?
Since early 2002.
2002, and you've compiled quite a list of information.
Yeah, we've collected audio, video, documentations, and most importantly, hard copies of email communications I've been able to obtain that very few people, if any, other than myself, have ever been able to obtain.
Well, and what have you learned from your investigation? What have you obtained? What would be the predominant thing you've learned about the WCB?
The most important factor is the withholding and destruction of people's personal and medical information while the adjudication and hearing process is underway.
Okay, so let's slow that down. So it's the destruction of
Medical and personal information that the WCB has on file pertaining to each claimant.
and why would they be doing that?
They're biasing the outcomes. Plain and simple. That's the only reason that you would cherry pick files, you would withhold files, and you would destroy record.
I see. And how many files of video and audio and transcripts and documents and affidavits do you think you'd have, rough number?
Right now I think we got around 400 audio tapes, a dozen videotapes, and maybe 30,000 documents, including 150 hard copies of emails that I was able to get.
Okay, and you have a lot of them stored on your computer?
As I'm working through it, we're trying to catalog absolutely everything and get a chronological history built of what exactly took place here. And moreover, to prove our point, we're going to, in the end, we have to find resolve. We have to stop what's going on. We have to definitely stop the withholding and the destruction of information prior to, during, and after all of our hearings, because when one side gets access to destroy, there's no way in the world that I can ever get a fair and impartial hearing. And this is what I've been saying to the Premier, all of his staff, the courts, the federal level, absolutely everybody. They all know what's taking place. But the irony for us injured workers is this withholding and destruction is legislatively approved within Alberta, and those involved in the decision-making process are paid directly by the government, including bonuses. And I believe we're the only judicial district in the country that allows people in the judiciary to earn bonuses for rendering decisions.
That sounds a little bit corrupted.
Oh, it's absolutely corrupt. The very second that you understand that you're not getting disclosure of your file, and that they do have the legislative approval to withhold and destroy your information at will, and our privacy laws give each individual that's handling any aspect of your file the lawful authority to withhold and destroy whatever they don't think is relevant. The catch is, once the information is destroyed, there's no record of it ever existing, so two complicating factors is, one, they can't prove what they destroyed wasn't relevant, and you can't prove what they destroyed was relevant. And so by obtaining these hard copies of the emails, it verifies beyond absolutely any doubt what we're saying about the withholding and destruction.
Okay, and you mentioned that you have, within 10 minutes, you have enough evidence that you could prove a lot of these allegations.
Absolutely.
Okay. You have a lot of them on that computer to the right in front of you.
Right now, yeah.
You have a lot of that information there, and you're going to provide Class Canada with all that information as backup, and we can also back that up for you.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Okay, if I could just get you to show me some more of your collection of evidences.
Over here, we've got what we describe to the courts as our audio library. These are phone call conversations and video interviews that have been conducted for many years now, starting in 2002 for myself, coming to present day. In this collection here, we've got Frank Pagnata's, we've got Ralph T's, and Jane Swainson's material is here as well. And one thing that I've been able to establish after going through all of this material, through the photographs, through the affidavits that we've got, is the central focus of the withholding and the destruction. Once again, once it's understood that they have lawful authority to withhold and destroy your files while you're going through the process, the game is over. It's that simple.
So I'm just going to ask you, underneath this cloth, is there any more?
Starting over there is boxes of files, and there's more boxes of files underneath here that stretch all the way across.
And these all pertain to the issues regarding Workers' Compensation Board.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, absolutely all of it. It's the case files themselves, every piece of information that we've been able to obtain through access to information and FOIP requests. And we took all of this information to the police, and they've refused to intervene.
Why would the police be necessary?
Well, because it's unlawful to withhold and destroy people's information while you're going through a quasi-judicial or a judicial process. It should be unlawful. But for the Alberta government to put legislation in place that makes this practice lawful, this is why we need the police services involved. We've been to the privacy commissioners, the police commissions, to all levels of government, provincially and federally, demanding that somebody step in and intervene, and absolutely nobody will, very simply because the Alberta government put it in legislation that it's okay to withhold and destroy our information while we're going through the process.
Okay, so basically the police wouldn't be legally required to assist you in these matters, or are they?
Oh no, absolutely. The police themselves are the lawful authority that holds jurisdiction in Alberta, specifically over the Legislative Assembly.
But they can only intervene if it's a criminal act.
Which is true, but the fact does remain, when we approach the police with everything you see here, they absolutely refuse to take possession of any of this said material. Yet a month later, documents are released from the police that says that after they reviewed the evidence that I gave them, there are no crimes happening here. We further discovered through, and it's verified through the audio, that the police commission interfered with the criminal review that the police were initially going to conduct. We had Edmonton City Councillor that interfered and demanded that this investigation be shut down and a letter be sent to me telling me there's no crime here. But the most imperative point is, or most important point is, that they wrote a letter stating that after they reviewed what I gave them, and yet I wasn't able to give them anything. They wouldn't take any evidence whatsoever.
So it sounds to me more like the WCB isn't just the only foul play in this game right now. It sounds to me it extends and branches the other levels of government.
Oh, absolutely. We have alleged that this is criminal negligence causing bodily harm, and in some cases where people have died, I've demanded that the police review to see if there was a direct correlation between the conduct of the WCB in regards to their files and to the fact that some people killed themselves, other people just died because they didn't get proper medical care. In May of 2003, former Federal Privacy Commissioner George Radwanski wrote a letter to the Alberta government outlining that if you tried to implement the privacy laws you were intending to do, he was going to stop them. Within a week, criminal charges were brought to bear against Mr. Radwanski, and 6 years later, in February of 2009, the federal court stated they had no idea why this case was ever brought against Mr. Radwanski. Upon review of what he wrote in that letter to the Alberta government, you will see his threat.
Did you have that letter right now?
I gave it to Bill. I do have a copy of it on the computer, and I can supply a copy to anybody that wants to see it, because I feel it's vitally important that people understand what Mr. Radwanski said that they were about to do. They were about to open up Pandora's box, and he actually tried to help us all. And yet, in fact, they took him out with these fraudulent criminal charges because even the federal court said the case against him was a red herring. It should never even have come forward.
Once again, the police are working against the judicial structure of what we all believe in. Instead of trying to help ensure justice, they're helping to maintain the disorder of justice.
Oh, beyond absolutely any doubt. I'm in fear of the police. I'm in fear of our elected officials because what I can prove they've done so far and what they fully intend to do in the future. And it's easy to see when they're making no attempts whatsoever to even hear anything we have to say.
But they do make attempts to work against you.
Oh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, constantly you can see through the legislation, they'll put a piece of legislation in place and then periodically they will amend it. As you follow these amendments, you're going to realize that these are not in the best interest of the citizens. So the catch is, they're not arguing. The legislation says they have the right to withhold and destroy, and they admit that they're doing it. But again, they're simply saying they're not destroying anything that's relevant. And by taking out the words from the original writings of the Meredith Principle in regards to workers' compensation and so on and so forth in regard to our privacy legislation, to take out the words shall and will, which basically demanded the government respond to us, the citizens, they replaced those words with may and relevant. We may give it to you if we feel it's relevant that you have access to it. Well, once again, the persons involved are getting paid large bonuses to play this game. And that's all it is in Alberta. It's just a merry-go-round to absolutely nowhere. Your family's going to be destroyed. My wife...
Okay, I'm going to say this, Anthony. It sounds like in this province, we are rewarding individuals for destroying other people's lives.
That is absolutely, unquestionably correct.
Okay. So once again, though, it's fair to say that some person working at the compensation board might get a nice, handsome, merry bonus, all for the purpose of making some child starve tomorrow.
That's unquestionable. It's happened to my own family.
So in your opinion, Patrick Clayton is more of a symbol of restoring justice within our community?
Something had to happen. And like I say, Ralph already discussed this with the court and explained to the court that if this doesn't stop, if these practices that we can describe do not stop, then violence is the only outcome. It's called natural sequelae, and a person's medical condition turning chronic. Anxiety, frustration, depression, these are all known aspects of natural sequelae of a condition turning chronic. The Compensation Board is 100% aware of how this works. You know, as one example to play you emotionally, they don't render a lot of decisions until November, December. Because very simply, Christmas is coming and you've got your family to look forward to. I used to work in the oil industry. I was making $750 a day plus expenses. Everything was fine. And how I felt the first time they did it to me when I had to go to Sanus Anonymous and I had to go to the food bank. It's the most degrading thing that any human being can ever have to go through. To watch my kids growing up year after year suffering. To watch my wife having to work 2 and 3 jobs. It's just too much. Right after Patrick Clayton was arrested and put within the remand, I booked a visit to go in and see Patrick. And in fact, we both cried about what happened. We spent 20 minutes crying about the simple fact that I told him that what he did, I would have done myself if I did not have a family. But they took his family away from him. So in his mind's eye, he had absolutely nothing left to lose. And I assured Patrick that I am borderline to being in exactly the same position. I know exactly what these people have done.
So for the record, today is Sunday, November the 8th, 2009. If you could tell us your name, full name.
Leslie Glenn Clayton.
And your relationship to Mr. Patrick Clayton.
Patrick's older brother.
Patrick's so when you were growing up with Patrick, can you tell me a little bit about Patrick as a child?
Oh, Patrick, he was always happy, smiling, always showing off those chiclets.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Who were you raised by?
Our mother and grandparents.
And tell me a little bit about your grandparents' background. What type of people were your grandparents?
My grandparents are very religious.
Fairly religious. And your mother?
Somewhat religious.
So it's safe to say that both of you are raised in somewhat of a religious, happy home?
Oh, exactly, yeah, for sure.
And Patrick, as he was growing up there, did he have any problems with other kids in his schools, or was he ever known to be violent?
No, not at all.
No, he was. What was he like? What would he do for his own activities as a child? What would he do?
He'd hang out with his friends and stuff, but at home and stuff, he's always cleaning and cooking and just helping around the house.
He likes to help around the house. He just likes to impress the family, kind of thing.
Oh, I would think. Well, yeah, family's important, right? So.
Can you tell me a little bit about what his last few years, who his family has been to him here in Edmonton?
His major role was his son.
His major role. Son. How old is his son?
6.
He's 6 years old.
Yeah.
And is he still with his? Was he before the incident that at the Workman Compensation Board? Was he still with his girlfriend, or are they separated now?
No, they've been split up.
How long have they been split up for?
I have to say probably about 7, 8 months.
So he tried about 3 years ago to let the Workman Compensation Board know that he was having some serious issues.
Yes.
And these serious issues, they're a matter of how much was he receiving in compensation benefits per month over the last few years?
I think it was approximately $495.
$495 a month is all he was receiving a month?
That's it.
And he's supposed to support himself and his son off $495.
That's correct.
And they were cutting him off. $495, they were cutting him off back then.
Yep.
And from what you remember, he split up with his former girlfriend approximately 7, 8 months prior to the event.
Yeah, officially, I guess. It was on and off for the last couple of years.
And how was his visitation with his son?
He was getting his son every other weekend, but I'm not too sure what happened. He hasn't seen his son for about 3 months.
Does he have legal visitation rights?
Every second weekend.
And he wasn't seeing his son for 3 months. Do you know why he wasn't seeing his son for 3 months?
No idea. No, his ex-girlfriend was supposed to drop him off, and he'd be sitting there waiting for 2 to 4 hours on Fridays, just waiting.
And obviously, would he have seen you'd have seen this? Was he heartbroken, obviously, or?
I could see it in his eyes.
So, if you could confirm to me the story that Patrick was involved in crack cocaine, is there any merit to that story?
I'm not too sure. He was probably doing a little bit, but I don't know how he can afford it. He can afford his rent or food, or even to see his son.
Did he ever do drugs as a child, as a teenager?
No.
Most of his family life, most of his adult life, did he ever do it?
No.
So this would have been maybe breakdown recently. That when they're talking about crack cocaine, was it maybe recent, maybe?
I would think it probably be like a recent or a random thing, but like I said, if he was doing it, I don't know how he's getting the money for it. I'm pretty sure that stuff is pretty expensive. You know, his fridge was empty. I lent him some money about 5, 6 weeks prior, just to help him out, get him some food and whatnot.
Three years ago, your brother Patrick had some incidences with Workman Compensation Board, and there was an incident on the high-level bridge.
Yeah, from what I understand, from what he told me, yes.
From what you're familiar with, what you remember him saying, could you tell us a little bit about what happened there 3 years ago?
He was having some problems with W.C.B. The usual BS, filling out forms, got cut off, filling out forms, jumping through hoops. So he did a little protest on the high-level bridge, just as wanted to get some attention.
So that would have been approximately 2006, 3 years ago.
Yeah, I would think.
And he stood on the high-level bridge, and apparently the story has it that they cordoned off the bridge to bring Patrick into temporary custody to take him to the hospital. Is this true?
Yes.
When he went to the hospital, apparently it was the Royal Alexander. Apparently he was released on his own, and from my understanding, he still owes a bill for the ambulance ride there. Is this true?
I believe so. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So as the only family member in Edmonton area that sees him, you'd know him probably better than anybody. What do you believe? What would you say is the reason he did what he did? There's been a couple of different stories coming in the newspapers, but would you believe it was because of simply a matter of a claim, or was it his son, or was it a combination? What do you believe?
I think it was a combination of both. He loves his son, and whenever he got his check, he'd be doing stuff with the son all the time. They were going to West Edmonton Mall, going for walks, going to the park. You know, his son was never in rags. He'd always buy him some new clothes. And
So he's spending all of his small amounts of $495 on his son.
yeah, that's correct.
So you called the police, and what happened?
Well, I went out to Sherwood Park to see the RCMP. They were going to phone the Edmonton police because they had no jurisdiction. But I told the officer, I said, well, I gave my phone number and my name to contact them, and if they wanted to call me, then. But I knew that he wasn't going to hurt anybody.
How do you know he wasn't going to hurt anybody?
Oh, he's not a violent person at all.
Now, speaking of violence, I think that the mainstay of this issue is that he walked into a government building with a loaded gun. Can you tell me where did he get the loaded gun?
That was my grandfather's. He passed away a year and a half ago in May.
Okay.
Yeah, and then, well, my grandfather made it, so he took it as a memorial, you know.
Something to remember the grandfather by?
Yes.
And you said something about he actually, after he had the gun in his possession after your grandfather's funeral, he had applied for a firearms acquisition certificate?
That's correct, yeah. And he got it, I think he got it sometime during the summer.
This last summer or the summer before?
This summer.
This summer. And obviously there's going to be kind of concern if he got this summer. Some people would say there'd be two sides of the coin. Some would say, well, maybe he had intentions back in summer to make use of his handgun or his shotgun. But is it fair to say that if he had the access to a gun and he wanted to use it without anybody knowing, why would he even apply for a firearms acquisition certificate? So what I'm asking you is, did he ever explain to you why he'd even want an FAC?
Well, he just wanted to make sure everything was legal with my grandfather's gun. You know, didn't want it to be taken away, you know.
Did he ever, from your understanding, did he ever verbally threaten any of the hostages?
No. No, not at all.
Because the media reported that he was the one who made the 911 call as soon as he took him to the 8th floor. He wanted to let the police know what was going on. And apparently, from what the information out there is saying, he tried to handle this as peacefully as possible, according to the police, right from the get-go.
Well, that's what I understand, yeah, from what I read. I mean, talking to Patrick, nobody was in any harm. Most of them actually didn't want to leave.
That's who you heard from, either Patrick or...
From Patrick.
Most of them didn't want to leave.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, and I also heard on just a brief taping that the couple of the hostages that were there, they said that they weren't in any harm. You know, everything was okay. Patrick just wanted to be heard. Get his story out there, not just for himself, but for the thousands of other people that are going through the same thing. He was cut off probably about 7 months now. And
so he's living off nothing, fresh air.
Yeah, exactly. He did come and work with us a few times, but...
How did he handle trying to work with you over the last... you said that he had worked with you on a couple of occasions, only a handful, over 7 months. How did he seem to handle that work?
Not very good. No, he came home after work and he was always in the tub. His knee was giving him some problems and stuff. And
so it was hard for him to maintain at work?
Yeah. Yeah. He'd suffer through it for what he had to do, and then I think it was pretty much all done when he got home.
And why didn't he just go to social services?
He told me that he tried to, but they told him that he still had an ongoing WCB claim, so they were not accessing anything.
So he did try to actually get social services?
Yes, he did. He tried.
And if it's feasible to say that social services allowances may even be more than $495 per month.
Yeah, I'm not too sure what it is. I think it's probably around 5 or something.
When you talk to your brother on the phone from remand nowadays, what's his general position? What is he saying to you generally?
He'll break into tears and stuff, and he's a kind-hearted person. He feels really sorry for what he did. None of the people were in any harm, but at the same time, he does, for what his actions and stuff were, he feels pretty bad about it.
He feels bad to whom, though? To the people that he took hostage, or that he let down his son, or he let down his family? Who does
It's a combination of all of those.
Does he ever mention the people that he took hostage?
Yeah, he says that he felt bad for them, you know, at the time of the initial taking, but throughout the day and stuff, they didn't even want to leave him.
From Patrick's perspective, when he talks to you on the phone, he had a bit of a bond with those people.
Oh yeah, because they all heard his story, and you know, and they felt bad for him. You know, he just wanted to get the media's attention to let them know what WCB is doing to not Patrick, but to quite a few other people that are out there. So I would think that he's not. He didn't do it just for himself.
How's your mother and your grandmother handling all this?
Well, they're okay. They're praying for him every day. You know, they feel bad as well. You know, we all do. But at the same time, everybody's praying for him, hoping for the best.
And does your mother or your grandmother ever speak their opinion on what they think caused Patrick to do this?
Well, they're saying the same thing that I did. You know, a person jumping through hoops so many times, you know, something's about to crack, you know. And like we said, we didn't think Patrick would ever do something like this, because he's not like that. But I guess a combination of not seeing his son, being cut off, having no source of any income whatsoever, I guess that, you know,
Make a person snap?
I would think.
Do you believe the hostages will come forward during trial and speak truthfully about the event and how Patrick treated them?
Well, I would hope so. Like I said, a lot of them were giving him a hug when they were going. You know, some of them didn't even want to leave. So I would imagine that they all knew that, like, Patrick's not a violent person at all. So,
You think
they knew that.
You think they knew that?
Oh, yeah.
He's just that type of person?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So in your opinion, he never would have even considered harming any of them?
No. No, not at all. No, he wasn't. Like I said to the police officer, he wasn't going to harm anybody or himself. That's just what he's like, right? But he wasn't doing it for himself. He's doing it for, like I said, the thousands of people out there that are going through the same thing. I would imagine if something doesn't happen soon, if something like this could get worse.
That's I guess what everybody worries about, is that somebody does go crazy one day and hopefully doesn't go into West Edmonton Mall and blow a bunch of people away to get hurt.
Yeah, that'd be insane.
But that's the fear a lot of people are having, is that sooner or later somebody's going to do something a lot more drastic.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that Patrick, he's not a violent person, and he was just trying to get hurt. So I'm kind of glad that he did it the way he did it, rather than somebody else going in there. But at the same time, I wouldn't condone anybody else doing something like this. You know, maybe what Patrick did will open up somebody's eyes and get things going.
And maybe in possibility, maybe what he did will actually eventually save some lives.
Well, I would think, if they look at this seriously. And like I said, whatever they did, I think it was cruel. But that's just my opinion.